Stop. Just stop for a moment. Before you do anything else, before you scroll, ask yourself one question. Why did this message find you today, at this exact moment? Out of millions of videos, millions of voices, somehow you are here. That was not random. And deep inside, you already feel it. Something has been quietly changing inside you for days, maybe even weeks. You couldn't explain it. You only noticed little things. Your reflection started feeling different. Your face looked softer under certain light. Your eyes carried a calm they didn't have before. It was so subtle that you convinced yourself you were imagining it. But what if you weren't? What if your future self has been trying to reach you, long before you press play? Listen carefully, because this message is meant for you. Not everyone would understand these words. Some people would laugh. Some would leave within seconds. But you stayed. You stopped. That tells me something important. You are ready. Not because someone chose you, but because something inside you responded to a frequency your conscious mind hasn't learned to recognize yet. Think about a radio for a moment. Thousands of signals exist around it every second, yet it only hears the station it is tuned to. Your mind works the same way. Your body does too. And today, whether you realize it or not, your inner signal shifted. That shift is small, almost invisible, but it changes everything. Because your skin has never simply been skin. It has always been listening. Every emotion you hide, every sleepless night, every moment of joy, every fear, your skin records them all like silent pages inside an ancient book. Most people believe aging only happens because time passes. But what if time isn't the only artist painting your face? What if the field surrounding your thoughts, your emotions, and your deepest beliefs has been writing invisible instructions into every cell without asking for your permission? And now, what if those instructions are beginning to change? Stay with me. Because what you're about to hear may explain something you've never been able to put into words. Have you noticed people disappearing from your life lately? Old conversations no longer excite you. Places that once felt comfortable now feel strangely empty. Even your mirror seems unfamiliar some mornings, as if someone else is quietly looking back. Most people think those are random life changes. They're not. They're signs that your old identity has started releasing its grip. When identity changes, biology often follows in ways science is only beginning to explore. That doesn't mean magic. It means your inner world and your outer world have always been connected more deeply than you were taught. And perhaps, just perhaps, your future self already knows what your present self is only beginning to discover. Imagine receiving a letter, not from tomorrow, but from the version of you who has already lived through every fear keeping you awake tonight. That version doesn't speak with panic. It doesn't rush. It simply smiles, because it remembers exactly where you are now. It remembers every doubt, every moment you believed nothing was changing, every morning you searched your face for proof that hope was still alive. And then, everything began shifting faster than expected. Not overnight. Not like a movie, but quietly, naturally, almost beautifully. Here's the truth no one tells you. The first wrinkle to disappear is never on your skin. It's the fear written across your soul. Read that again in your mind. Because that single sentence changes the way you see everything that follows. Now let me take you somewhere. Close your eyes for just a second and picture an endless desert beneath a sky filled with moving stars. In the distance stands a glowing library built from white stone. There are no doors, only light. Every shelf holds countless versions of your life. Every choice, every possibility, every future waiting for the right moment to unfold. One book suddenly begins to glow brighter than the others. You didn't choose it, and as it slowly opens, you realize the handwriting inside is your own. Before we open the first page together, take a deep breath, and if something inside you is already whispering, "This feels strangely familiar," type, "I am ready" in the comments. Like this video, subscribe if you're walking this journey with us, and stay until the end, because the next part reveals the very first message your future self wrote about the moment your skin quietly began reversing the story you thought time had already finished. Take another slow breath. Now imagine that glowing book resting in your hands. The pages don't feel like paper. They feel alive, warm, almost as if they have been waiting for your touch. You hesitate. Not because you're afraid of what is inside, but because a small part of you already knows the words are going to change the way you see yourself forever. The first page turns by itself. There is only one sentence. You kept searching for proof, while your body was waiting for permission. You stop reading. Permission? Permission for what? Your future self answers before the question even finishes forming in your mind. For years, you believed your body was working against you. Every new line on your face, every tired morning, every moment you looked in the mirror became another reason to believe time was winning. But your body never declared war on you. It only followed the instructions you repeated every single day. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you quietly said, "I'm getting older. I look exhausted. My best years are behind me"? You may have spoken those words only in your mind, but your body heard every one of them. Now listen carefully. This is where everything begins to shift. Imagine planting two identical seeds. One grows in rich soil, watered with care and sunlight. The other grows where every day someone whispers, "You'll never become anything." Both seeds have the same potential, but they grow differently because of the environment surrounding them. Your body is no different. Every thought, every emotion, every memory creates an environment, and your skin has been living inside that environment every second of your life. That doesn't mean every wrinkle comes from a single thought. It means your inner world shapes the way you move through the outer one more than most people ever realize. Your future self continues writing. The moment everything changed wasn't when I found a secret. It was when I stopped fighting the person in the mirror. That sentence feels strangely personal. Maybe because you've done it too. Maybe you've stood under bright bathroom lights searching for flaws no one else could even see. Maybe you've compared yourself with old photos. Each comparison quietly pulled your attention away from the life still growing inside you. But here's something almost no one notices. The strongest changes often begin before they become visible. A tree doesn't become taller the instant you plant it. For a long time, everything important happens beneath the surface. Roots spread silently. Strength forms quietly. Nothing looks different. Until one day, everyone notices what was happening all along. Could the same be true for you? Could the calm you've been feeling, the unexpected desire to care for yourself, the strange feeling that you're becoming someone new, be the roots of a transformation that hasn't fully appeared yet? Your future self smiles as if it already knows your answer. It writes another line. I stopped asking when change would arrive and started living as the person who believed it already had. Read that slowly, because this may be the moment your own story begins turning in a new direction. The future doesn't knock on your door. It quietly grows inside the choices you repeat today. Hold on to that line. You may remember it months from now when you suddenly realize you've become someone you once hoped to be. But the book isn't finished. As the next page starts glowing, a name appears that you've never heard before. Not a place. Not a date. A person. Someone who once stood exactly where you are now, believing nothing was changing, until one unforgettable encounter transformed everything they thought they knew about themselves. And what happened to that person might explain. We'll open that page together. In the next part, the name on the page is Izara. You don't recognize it. Neither did I the first time I came across this story. But sometimes the people who change the way we think are the ones history never talks about. The page begins to move, almost like a memory waking up. Izara lived in a quiet village surrounded by mountains where every season left its mark on the land. The people there believed life only moved in one direction. Children became adults. Adults became old. Nothing could interrupt that path. Izara believed the same, until one morning changed everything. She walked to the river before sunrise, just as she had done for years. The water was perfectly still. When she looked into it, she expected to see the same tired face that had greeted her every morning. Instead, she noticed something she couldn't explain. Not younger, not older. Just different. Her eyes carried a light she hadn't seen in years. Her expression looked peaceful without trying. For a moment, she thought it was the morning light playing tricks. She stepped back, then leaned in again. The reflection hadn't changed. That entire day, she couldn't stop thinking about it. She asked herself, was it only my imagination, or did something inside me truly shift? Now here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. That evening, an old traveler arrived in the village. He wasn't carrying gold. He wasn't selling miracles. He simply carried a weathered satchel filled with handwritten journals. Most people ignored him. But when he looked at Azara, he smiled as if he had been expecting her. Without asking her name, he quietly said, "You're noticing the reflection before the transformation is complete." Izara froze. She had never spoken to anyone about what she saw that morning. So how could this stranger know? Fear mixed with curiosity. She almost walked away. But something inside whispered, "Stay." The traveler invited her to sit beside a small fire as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of the wind filled the silence. Finally, the traveler opened one of his journals. Its pages were covered with circles, waves, and strange patterns that looked almost like ripples spreading across water. He pointed to one drawing and asked, "What happens when you throw a single stone into a still lake?" Izara answered, "The ripples spread everywhere." He nodded. "Exactly. Most people spend their lives staring at the shoreline, wondering why nothing changes, while the real change began at the very center." He gently placed his hand over his heart. The human body is like that lake. Every thought, every emotion, every act of self-kindness sends another ripple. At first, no one sees it. Then one day, the whole surface tells the story. Those words stayed with Azara, not because they sounded mysterious, but because they felt true. She remembered every year she had criticized herself, every moment she believed she was falling behind, every time she looked into a mirror searching only for what was wrong. For the first time, she wondered if she had been watching the shoreline while missing the ripple that had already begun. The traveler looked at her one last time before closing the journal. Then he said something she would never forget. "Your reflection is always the last part of you to discover who you've already become." That sentence echoed in her mind long after he disappeared into the night. The next morning, Izara returned to the river, not to search for flaws, not to measure time, but simply to observe. And that's when she noticed something even stranger. It wasn't only her reflection that seemed different. The world around her felt as if it had quietly adjusted, as though reality itself had begun responding to a version of her she hadn't fully met yet. What she discovered over the following days would completely change the meaning of the traveler's words. And once you hear what happened next, you may never look at your own reflection the same way again. The next few days felt ordinary, at least on the surface. Izara still woke before sunrise. She still walked the same path to the river. She still greeted the same people. Nothing around her looked dramatically different. Yet something impossible to ignore had changed. The world no longer felt heavy. It felt responsive. A child who had always looked down suddenly smiled at her. An old neighbor who rarely spoke stopped to ask how she was doing. Birds landed closer than they ever had before. Small moments. Tiny moments. But together they formed a pattern she couldn't explain. She wondered if she was simply paying more attention, or if life had quietly begun answering a signal she had only recently started sending. The question stayed with her all day. That evening, she opened the traveler's journal again. A folded page slipped onto the floor. It wasn't there before. She was certain of it. Written across the top were the words, "Reality often whispers before it speaks." Below that was a simple drawing. A person standing in front of two mirrors. One mirror reflected only the outside. The other reflected light flowing from the person's heart before reaching their face. Beneath the drawing, one sentence was carefully written. Most people polish the mirror, very few transform the light. Izara stared at those words for a long time. Then something clicked. For years she had focused only on what everyone else could see. The mirror, the skin, the appearance. But she had almost never asked what was feeding the expression behind her eyes. How often had she rushed through life carrying stress she never released? How many nights had she replayed painful memories before falling asleep? How many mornings had she begun the day expecting disappointment before anything had even happened? Those invisible habits had become so normal. She stopped noticing them. Maybe that's true for you too. Maybe you've spent years searching for one big answer, while hundreds of tiny daily moments have quietly been shaping the person you are becoming. Here's something your future self wants you to hear. Change rarely announces itself. It arrives through choices so small they almost seem unimportant. One calmer breath, one kinder thought, one extra hour of rest, one moment of gratitude instead of criticism. Each one is like another drop of water filling an empty glass. No single drop seems important, until suddenly, the glass overflows. Your future self writes another message. I didn't wake up one morning looking different. I woke up one morning realizing I no longer recognized the person who used to doubt everything. Think about that. The greatest transformation may not begin with your skin. It may begin with the way you look at yourself. Because when that changes, your posture changes. Your smile changes. Your energy changes. And people begin responding to you differently, often before you notice anything in the mirror. The mirror never creates your identity. It quietly echoes the one you've already accepted. Hold on to that line. One day it may explain a chapter of your life that never made sense before. As Azara closed the journal, something unexpected happened. A small piece of parchment, hidden deep inside the cover, slipped into her hands. Unlike the other pages, this one wasn't written by the traveler. At the bottom was a signature. It simply said, "From your future self." Her heartbeat quickened. How could that be possible? She slowly unfolded the letter. Read the first sentence. And tears immediately filled her eyes. Because the very first line described something she had never told another living person. What those words revealed is the reason this message may have found you today. Izara held the letter with trembling hands. For a long moment, she couldn't read another word. How could a stranger know the one memory she had locked away for years? She looked around. The river was quiet. The wind had settled. It felt as if the entire world was waiting with her. Finally, she looked back at the page. The letter began. You still think that one painful season defined you. It didn't. It only introduced you to the person you were meant to become. Her eyes filled with tears. Years earlier, Izara had lost someone she loved deeply. After that day, she stopped laughing the same way. She stopped dreaming. She cared for everyone else, but forgot how to care for herself. Every smile became smaller. Every morning became heavier. Without realizing it, she carried that invisible weight into every part of her life. And over time, her face began telling the story her heart never spoke aloud. The future letter continued. You blamed time for what sorrow was carrying. Izara froze. She had never thought of it that way. She believed the mirror was showing age. But perhaps it had been showing exhaustion. Not just physical exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion. How many people live like that? They sleep, but never truly rest. They smile, but never feel light. They keep moving, while carrying years of unspoken pain. If that sounds familiar, then hear this carefully. The person judging her most harshly had always been herself. No one else repeated those old stories as often as she did. No one else reminded her of yesterday more than her own thoughts. At that moment, she folded the letter against her heart, closed her eyes, and quietly said, I released the version of me that believed healing was too late. Nothing dramatic happened. No bright light. No mysterious sound. Just a deep feeling of peace. The kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. Sometimes the biggest changes don't arrive with noise. They arrive with silence. The silence that follows finally putting down a burden you've carried for far too long. Youth isn't only measured by the years on your face. It's revealed by the freedom in your heart. Remember that, because many people spend their lives chasing a younger appearance, while forgetting to become lighter inside. Days passed, and people in the village began asking Izara the same question. You look different. She smiled. She wasn't wearing anything new. She hadn't discovered a miracle. She simply wasn't carrying the same invisible weight anymore. And somehow, everyone could see it. But the story doesn't end there. One evening, as the sun disappeared beyond the mountains, Izara turned over the final page of the journal. Hidden beneath it was a simple practice, a daily ritual her future self called the first 5 minutes. The traveler had written one note beside it. Most people read these words. Very few actually live them. What happened when Izara followed that practice every morning is the part of the story that changed everything forever. The next morning, Izara woke before the sun, not because she had to, but because she couldn't stop thinking about the final page. Outside, the world was silent. The sky was still painted in deep blue, waiting for the first light of dawn. She unfolded the last page carefully. There were no long explanations, no complicated symbols, only 5 simple steps. At the top, her future self had written, "The first 5 minutes after you wake are when your mind is listening the most. Speak carefully, because those moments often shape the rest of your day." Izara took a slow breath. For the first time in years, she didn't rush toward the mirror. Instead, she placed one hand over her heart and the other over her stomach. She closed her eyes. She listened to her breathing, not to escape life, but to arrive in it. Then she quietly said, "Thank you for carrying me this far." At first, the words felt awkward, almost strange. She had spent years criticizing herself. Showing gratitude to herself felt unfamiliar. But she kept going. She remembered one beautiful moment from the day before. She imagined the person she wanted to become, not perfect, not flawless, just peaceful, kind, and full of quiet confidence. Then she opened her eyes and smiled. That smile wasn't forced. It wasn't for anyone else. It was simply the first honest smile she had given herself in a very long time. The days that followed didn't become perfect. She still faced challenges. Some mornings she felt tired. Some memories still returned. But now they no longer controlled the direction of her day. She noticed that she stood taller. She laughed more easily. She spent less time searching for flaws and more time noticing moments worth living. And slowly, without chasing it, the change everyone kept talking about became visible. Not because time had reversed, but because peace had finally found a place to live inside her. Your future self leaves you with one final message. Don't wait to become someone worthy of loving yourself. Love yourself, and you'll discover the person you've been waiting to become. If this story has spoken to something deep inside you, don't let it end here. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, before you look into a mirror, give yourself just 5 quiet minutes. Notice your breathing. Think of one thing you're grateful for. Speak one kind sentence to yourself. Then step into your day. You may not notice a dramatic change immediately, but remember what the traveler taught Izara. The ripple always begins at the center before it reaches the shore. The life you've been waiting for doesn't begin when the mirror changes. It begins the moment you do. If this message found you when you needed it most, write, "I choose my new chapter" in the comments. It isn't about proving anything to anyone else. It's a reminder to yourself that today is the day you stopped letting the past write your future. Like this video, subscribe if you want more stories that inspire hope and reflection, and share this with someone who may need these words today. Until next time, take care of your mind. Be kind to your heart. And never forget, the future version of you is quietly cheering for every small step you take today.